So as we're waiting for the next um, individual to be on the stage here, um, it has been amazing. Even though we've had to switch around a few things, now to me it's like Christmas, uh, seeing who I get to bring to the stage next. And it looks like it is John Verrico. Did I say it correct?
It's Verrico.
Verrico. Okay. Here you go. Um,
Got it.
Verrico.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Verrico's
glad that
close
I
enough.
get a chance to put to bring you to the international stage. Love your shadow box in the background. As you can tell, I brought out mine from so that people can understand that when you make that transition from, and we're all veterans, when you make that transition, you get that shadow box, and it just is that dash of your career. And uh, before we get started, I'm looking at your medals and things like that, which which is once again, it's really our our fingerprint on the military. So thank you very much for your service.
Well,
And
Russell, it's also the fingerprint the military has put on us as well.
correct, yeah, you're absolutely right. And who brought you to the international stage?
Ken Rochon did.
Hey, Dr. Smiley, there you go once again. You know, I'm glad that he has touched so many of our lives. Um,
We
in
have
his,
interacted in multiple types of ventures, and so just always been a great interaction, and love the guy. So
yep, same here.
when he
Yep,
said come to this, I said absolutely.
absolutely. Yep. So I'm going to step away so that you have the international stage to tell about what you do and how your service has impacted not only our country, but I see that smile too. So how your smile has impacted the country as well.
Thank you, Russell. This is a my adventures in the military are kind of well, I don't want to say they're different because everybody has their own very unique individual experiences. I would say my coming to the military was probably a little bit different. I didn't just go, oh, I want to serve my country. It was not an act of patriotism. It was an act at the time almost of desperation. I was a very unreliable employee at that point in time in my life. I had no discipline whatsoever. I couldn't get up in the morning. Um, I couldn't hold a job. I was good at what I did. I just wasn't punctual. And my kid brother said to me, John, I've been thinking about going into the military. And he goes, boy, you need to straighten your stuff out. So, why don't you, maybe you should come too. And I was like, I don't know about the military, man. I was like, well, I don't want to be shot at and crawl through the mud. So the Army and Marine Corps were out and I had a fear of heights. So I didn't want to go in the Air Force. I said, well, I do know how to swim. So let's take a look at the Navy. And it seems weird, but that's the way it wound up. And so at the time I was a journalist and the Navy had a journalism program, and I said, hey, that'd be great. I could go do like, base newspapers and do stuff on board the ship. That sounds cool. Sounds like a great way to get my career really started along those lines. And we had a long delayed entry program at the time. And all of a sudden I get a call saying, hey, we have an opening in the school. So don't have to wait 18 months. You can actually leave in 2 weeks. And my kid brother said, go ahead and take advantage of it. I'll meet you out in the fleet. Well, he never did join. And he's laughing to this day about how he tricked me into going into the military. And all my friends, my family, everybody said, "There's no way you're going to make it. You're just not going to be able to deal with being in the military." And so off I went, wondering how this was going to work out. And interestingly enough, I absolutely loved my time in the Navy and the camaraderie and what I learned and the career development and the leadership and everything about it. And instead of just doing my obligatory couple of years and getting out, hopefully making a motion towards my ultimately professional civilian career, I wound up making a career out of it. I did 10 active and then 15 more in the reserves, and ultimately retired as the last Master Chief journalist in the Navy Reserve. It was an amazing career. I'll tell you, when I got on board my first ship, I was really, really worried. The XO on board. Uh, First of all, you get on board and you get a chance. Well, I'm going to go back. I'm going to backtrack to that very first reporting on board. I reported on board. My ship was sitting in a shipyard in dry dock in the Scaramouche shipyard in Piraeus, Greece. I reported aboard. It was probably around, it was after taps. It was about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And here I am. It's pitch black dark where I get dropped off by a taxi. Didn't even know where I was. Didn't even realize it was a ship. And then there was this, long brow to climb up to get up to the top. And I get up to the top, and here's this grizzled old chief petty officer with a big red beard, because this is back still when we had beards in the Navy. And he looks at me, and here I am, Seaman Verrico reporting for duty, sir. And he looks at me and he said, "Who the hell are you?" It's like, Seaman Verrico reporting aboard. He goes, "Oh, you're the new journalist. I'm your sponsor and I'm your boss." I'm like, "Oh, great. Thank you." This is going to be a heck of a welcome. And so he sends me to, he gets on the 1MC and he goes, "Seaman Boudreaux, get your ass on the quarterdeck." Never heard such language in my life, that using that in an official capacity. Here comes this kid, t-shirt, no uniform, one pant leg rolled up, cigarette hanging off his lip, no ball cap. "What do you want, Chief?" Like, what is this kind of a place? What happened to all the military stuff we learned about in boot camp and all that respect? But there was actually a lot of respect there. And it was the fact that Chief Push was his name. And he just set up an environment of trust with the people that worked for him, so that we all felt like we were friends. And he just gave me the ability to do what I needed to do. He said to me afterward, he said, "You were trained in what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to run the TV station and all that kind of stuff. You were trained to do that. I wasn't. I'm not going to tell you how to do it." And he let me do my job. So here I was, an independent duty journalist on board this ship. I'm running two TV stations, two radio stations, doing a shipboard newspaper, doing a newsletter that went home to the families, handling all the media queries, putting training people for media interviews so people can tell them about what we're doing. When the ship pulled into a friendly port, I became tour guide, set up tours, dignitary visits, all that. Everything in the public affairs and communication field, I wound up doing. And all because of Chief Push. His real name is Paul Pusker, still out there. He's the guy who basically set me up for success. And he told me how much he trusted me to do my job. That made all the difference in the world. Now, the XO on board basically told me that he didn't believe in public affairs and that he wanted to scrub everything that I did. And he said he didn't trust me at all. And his role, his leadership style, was to try to get me to work harder to please him. Well, I worked hard to please Chief Push, and I didn't really care so much about the commander, but I did, and I learned so much. The camaraderie still lasts to this day. Chief Push and I, now Chief Push retired back in 1983. He and I got together for lunch just a few months ago. By the way, I did not see him from 1983 until the time I retired in 2005, yet he showed up at my retirement ceremony. That's the kind of camaraderie that we build. And everything that we learn together, you know, the Navy, especially all the services, are really encouraging about leadership and developing skills for raising the others up. As I moved up through the ranks, I realized it was not about me. It was about taking care of the troops. It was about taking care of each other. It was about making sure the guy who works for you can advance. And so many of the people that worked for me over the years as a junior enlisted person went on to become officers. And the people who, my retirement officers, were people who I trained as junior enlisted folks. Now, I stayed on the enlisted side intentionally because I wanted to be a master chief. This is the kind of skill that we get in the Navy and in the service in general, right? We learn how to be uh, less about ourselves and more about everyone else. Those lessons are what really brought me up in life. Those things have stayed with me, and that's how I've become a speaker and a coach on motivational leadership. The people that I worked with in the service who encouraged me to be better, to do better, uh, all of that, no matter what situation was, whether we were in a war zone. And I'm not going to talk war stories. I'm going to talk just about that camaraderie and the leadership lessons that we learned. Didn't make a difference what we were doing, everyday stuff or fighting a battle. The building that trust and knowing that we had each other's back and knowing that we were encouraged to grow, that was what stuck with me. And that's what sticks with me to this day. So I know I'm probably running tight on time, Russ. Where are we at? I could tell more stories.
Well, we definitely appreciate it. A couple of things that I just want to recap of what you said is that we always want to make it better um, for those who we interact with underneath us, because um, as I alluded earlier, my first troop in the Air Force became the first Chief Master Sergeant in our career field, which um, in the field of orthopedics, there was only 128 of us Air Force wide. So for that to happen was significant. I was like, yes, look at my baby grow up. And I'm sure that you've had many moments like that in
Exactly that. Exactly that.
in your military
there
career.
was a
You're like,
young
yes.
there was a young enlisted junior petty officer who worked for me who then she was the one who pinned on my Master Chief pin.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
at my retirement ceremony, she presented me with the Chief Petty Officer saber, which is not even a uniform item anymore, but she went out and had it specially made,
Oh, wow.
taking a collection from the other junior officers who I had also trained over the years.
Mhm.
And she took this collection up, had this sword specially made, and it's sitting there up on the wall, right up above that map there.
Oh, okay, I see it. Yep. Which is great because not many of those get handed out.
No,
Not at
no.
all.
Mm-mm.
And that is pretty significant. And but like you say, is it's not about us.
It is not. It is not. And that actually helped me throughout everything else in life. I was a bullied kid in youth. You know, I was
Mm,
a little guy. And that was also one of the reasons why people said I would never make it in the military, because I always felt
right.
like I was less than other people.
Mhm.
And the military made me realize that I was not less than anyone else. I was
Right.
I was essential to the team, and so was
Correct.
everybody else.
And so was everybody else. And like you say, when you have great supervision, because I'm sure you've experienced it both ways, those who have been great and those who you said, I no, I don't think I want to follow your example.
Exactly. Yeah, there were great examples
So,
of leadership on both sides of that throughout the
oh
whole.
yeah,
But you're gonna see that in corporate America too. But I'll tell you, it's not as impactful as it is
it's
when you're in
not
the
as
military.
impactful. For example, when I got stationed in Alaska, my supervisor, Mike Dobson, if he says, I don't know what kind of trouble you got into in Omaha, Nebraska. He says, I am the meanest SOB on the first floor. If you have a problem, you bring it to me. You know, I will solve your problem. And he says, I'm going to teach you how to be a great leader too. And sure enough, he did. He walked it like he talked it. And they said that I was like him without all the cussing. So, but you have great leaders like that who
There is
make a
there is
difference,
something
who
about a
make you
military vocabulary, isn't there?
right, who make you inspired to want to lead, you know. And when you have those type of people um, who mentor you, it is truly amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
Quick story. Do I have time for a quick story?
yes, we do. Uh-huh.
Super quick. So my ship went into dry dock late into my career,
Hmm.
and at this point, there was no need for a journalist on board because we weren't running a TV station, we weren't doing any newsletters, and the whole ship was being pretty much taken apart. So they shoved me into the only place that was existence for us, and that was uh, the Fire Watch division, which basically
Hmm.
meant whenever there was hot work going on, so welding or cutting and stuff like that, I had all the dirt bags on the ship who had no other skills, and when they would just right, and they got a CO2 bottle and had to go sit and watch the guy doing the hot work to make sure he didn't start a fire. I had 120 of these kids straight, strewn around the ship during all this hot work going on. It was very amusing. It was very amusing. But here I am. I was a second class petty officer, and in walks this brand spanking new, straight out of the academy ensign.
Mm.
He walks in one morning and he looks around, and he's a brand new DCA. He's the damage control officer, and under him was the Firewatch division, among other stuff. And he came
Mhm.
over and he says, "Excuse me, Petty Officer Verrico, where's our chief?" And I said, "Sir, this division doesn't have a chief." He said, "Oh, um, do we have a first class petty officer?" I said, "No, sir. I'm your senior petty officer here as a second class." And he said, boy, at the academy they taught us to report to the chief because the chief will train us. And I'm thinking in the back of my brain, this officer is going to go someplace. And I also
Mhm.
thought in the back of my brain, I want to be a chief someday. And when he looked at me and he said, so Petty Officer Verrico, how long have you been in the Navy? I said, "Sir, just coming up on 5 years." He said, "Petty Officer Verrico, train me." And I went, this guy is going to make it. He just made captain, by the way. I've been tracking his career over the years, all these years. So,
Yep.
yeah. But at that point, I said, okay, making chief petty officer is my goal because I want
Right.
to be in that position to be able to help these junior officers coming in as well as taking care of the troops.
Correct. And I can, because that's the line side of the house. So I did the same thing with the doctors on the medical side of the house because I did orthopedics for 35 years. And 2019 of that was in the military. And so when you would get the new doctors and they did not know, and you had to teach them how to take care of military people because
Hmm.
it's totally different than what they learn, in civilian practice in their residencies, so on and so forth. Because you had the nuances of members being deployed. they never experienced that. Um, Eventually, they did get a chance to deploy, but one one of the last doctors that I took care of, he came out Sinai where they developed the gastric bypass procedure, and very intelligent, uh, however, very green. So he showed up the first day, no uniform whatsoever. And you know, on the line side of the house, if that would have happened, you would have been on on the civilian side of the house real soon.
Real
So
quick, yeah.
we had to go get uniforms for him. Not only get uniforms for him, but in 3 days, he was supposed to go from captain in the Air Force to major. So we had to have both uniforms ready for him. So yeah, it's just amazing when you have people who are transitioning into the military as officers, and you're training them to be great military leaders. And I've had the privilege of having some of those people in my career as well. So it is nice to hear us talking about how we impact those who make a difference. I had one gentleman, uh, general orthopedic surgeon, phenomenal. His dad was a general. He was on track to be a general. He got out when he was a colonel because he loved orthopedics so much. But amazing guy, beautiful hands, um, great bedside manner. But he would tell stories about, when he first got in, and even though he came from a military family, he was like, I still didn't get it completely. So yeah, it's just um, getting a chance to walk down memory lane with you in these instances is amazing. And for people who don't know, here it is. I'm like this, and I'm about to pass off the baton here in a few minutes to John. And so we're getting
Oh,
a
are
chance.
we on the wrap up here? Is there not another guest between now and the top of the hour?
It's just me and you, baby, until we
You know,
the time or the football. So
you reminded me of something too. And you mentioned being deployed, right? When we're overseas and the hardship that does on the families.
mhm,
I actually I swore there was no way I was going to get married. There is no way. Saw too many hardships of the separations with family and such. And then I met this woman who just changed my whole life and it's okay. And
which is great.
oh yeah, sometimes we're really, really fortunate. And so here was this woman who just came into my life and there was just something about her. I just couldn't let her go. So um, the problem was, that I was on a ship and I was constantly being deployed. That ship was always out. We were, 8, 9 months at a clip. In the
Mhm,
3.5 years that we dated, we may have spent less than 9 months in each other's physical presence. And that was
right.
in piecework here and there. Now, we did not have email. We did not have cell phones. We Our courtship was done primarily through snail mail, and
Mhm,
sometimes it would be months before letters can go back and forth. And my wife was a prolific letter writer. I've got boxes of letters from her from that time. Um, I was a journalist. I'm writing all day long. The last thing I wanted to do was get down and put stuff on paper again. So
mhm.
my way of communicating, so she's got like this little, stack with a rubber band about around it, compared to my boxes full of stuff. But my preferred way of communicating was when the ship went to a friendly port, was to seek out the international telephone exchange,
Yes. Yeah.
sign up on the waiting list for an open overseas line, which is usually 3 or 4 hours, 6 hours on
Mhm,
Christmas morning, by the way, from
right.
Gulfshire, Turkey. And I didn't have a credit card.
Mhm.
Most of us didn't carry credit cards back then. Certainly, as a junior enlisted guy, I didn't have a lot of cash.
Right.
So the calls were collect calls, which meant she was paying for them
Oh,
at
wow.
$17 a minute.
Mm. She must have really loved you.
I, I, Russ, I think the only reason why she followed through and married me was just because she had invested so much at that point in her
Mhm.
time that she's just trying to get her money back. But there is something to be
Yeah,
said
she was
about,
like, I'm gonna collect my payment.
yeah, I'm going to get my money's worth out of this. But there's
Mhm.
something about,
Yep.
that I don't know if this has been mentioned by too many folks, but something about military families that
Mhm.
is even more amazing than those of us who actually served
Mhm.
on the front line.
Correct.
And that
And
is that support network for them, and what our spouses and families need to go through um, to stick with us after all this. My wife and I just had our 40th wedding anniversary.
yeah. So yeah, I get it. And like I said, with me speaking to the medical side of the house, when they would have injuries, broken bones, so on and so forth, and the member is not there, we this is where the empathy has to be um, overflowing,
Yeah.
because once again, they're taking care of the book of business abroad. And when they walk through the door, and it might be the child, it might be the mom that's got injured, you want to make sure that they understood that we're going to do everything to get you back to your normal activities.
Right.
And if you need anything from us, because I myself and one of the podiatrists, if somebody needed a ride somewhere, we would give them a ride. You know,
Hmm.
yes, it would. To me, this is what you're supposed to do in the military community. They might not have a car, or their car got totaled in an accident. So you provide that extra empathy, that extra experience, so that when their male or woman, male or female comes back, they're like, I went to the hospital, this happened, so on and so forth, for us to be able to um, have that experience of empathy
That
from.
that empathy, that
Mhm.
compassion for our fellows, um, that is the core of all of this, right? That
Mhm.
we have to realize that we're not here for ourselves. We are here for to support others, and that's what I've been trying to do ever since I left the military. Since I took the uniform off, I'm still out there, as a speaker, as an author, as a coach, trying to put out information out there about living a compassionate life
Correct,
and
because you
working
got to.
to serve others. So,
And
yeah.
speaking of compassion, here it is. And once again, hey man, you got to put your arms up so I can give you a ball, so you can host the next hour. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to the Dr. Smiley, once again, Tanisha, the staff, um, Faison. Thank you for allowing me to have the privilege of hosting the past 3 hours. And now I get to hand it off to John, and we're going to have to do a book of business as well, right?
Let's do it. Let's do it, Russ. Let's definitely connect. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best way to get in touch with me. And so I look forward to chatting with you more and getting to know you better, my brother. Appreciate it.
Yep. And same here, my brother. You take care. And I'm stepping away so that you can handle taking care of us once again.